Chairman Bankole Thompson. We've put up a very provocative question on social media. It is, in fact, I'm going to stay on this topic. It is titled, it is called, well, the question is, who is the next Judge Damon Keith for Detroit? Who is the next Morris Dees for Detroit? I've been talking about this issue because I think it's important, right? And of course, this ties into civic responsibilities, civic leadership, and so forth. Because I've gone to a lot of events, I've gone to galas, I've gone to receptions, right? To a point that, you become so gala fatigued, you become so reception fatigued, right? And you really have to just, shift your invitations, do I really want to go to this event? Because it's the same thing all over and over again, right? And there's receptions, there's galas, there's events, you know, flawlessly executed, celebrate men like a Damon J. Key, senior judge of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, in terms of the decisions that he has handed down over the years, the verdict, and the courage that he applied in those verdicts, right? Going against the president, right? The president personally suing a judge. The Pontiac Busing decision, right? The major lawsuit, a class action lawsuit against DT Energy. Back then it was called Detroit Edison. I mean, just this web of verdicts that Judge Kidd has rendered over the years, right? We celebrate Judge Kidd, we talk about him, and some other judges as well. We talk about how great they've been. We talk about how significant their place is in Black history. And it is, in fact, this conversation is relevant because we're now headed into Black history this week. But the question that I always ask is, who is the next Judge Damon Keith? We talk about Morris Dees as the champion of civil rights, right? A white male, who devoted his entire life to fighting for equality for Blacks and civil rights for all people, right? Okay, let's open the list. Charles Hamilton Houston, the former dean of the Howard University Law School, right, who was very instrumental in the Brown v. Board of Education, Thurgood Marshall, and so forth. But who is the next Charles Hamilton Houston for Detroit? Who is the next Morris Dees for Detroit? Who is the next Damon Keith for Detroit, right? Detroit has a lot of brilliance. Detroit is not bereft of talent. Detroit has a lot of talent. Detroit is not suffering from a legal brain drain. There are lots of lawyers around this town. We have legal organizations, we have groups and so forth that get together for their social well-being. But the question is, who is the next Judge Keith, right? I mean, who is the next individual, who is willing, has the courage enough to make certain decisions or to take certain decisions that are important and that are tied to the well-being of their people? Who? So I'm struggling to understand, I'm struggling to find out who that person is, because I don't think we have a Morris Dees in this town. Somebody who you would say is an impeccable lawyer, a powerful and a brilliant mind, and one with an indelible commitment to civil rights and equality. When we talk about the Judge Keith, the same applies. I don't know, maybe somebody knows, but it's important for us to have this conversation because I think sometimes we get stuck in the past. We like to get stuck in the past, actually, because we just like to go to events and celebrate the past and talk about how wonderful it was. Were you around when this decision was handed in 1970? Oh, I remember so-and-so was around. Well, that is the past. We're in the now. Who is the Damon Keith now, and who is courageous enough to be the Damon Keith of now? Let's go to the phone lines, 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. Building the next generation of leadership and how you accept the mantle of leadership. Let's go to Lashonda. Lashonda has a question or comment.
Yes, I have a question,
Sure.
Steve Bankole, and I'm enjoying your show. Richard Spencer,
Right.
for all those, with Morris Dees, I was just wondering if in any of your conversations, what threat do you think Richard Spencer, who came very close to being at the University of Michigan on January 26th, what threat do you think he still holds in getting his, white supremacist message across?
Okay. Thank you so much, Lashonda.
Thank you.
Well, Richard Spencer, if you don't know, Richard Spencer is the founder of the alt-right, or the originator, or the godfather, or the the one who terrorized the meaning of the alt-right. And, he's scheduled to speak at Michigan State University, by the way, because they went to court and there was a settlement and so forth. So he's going to be speaking at Michigan State University, but he's not scheduled yet to speak at the University of Michigan. And so Richard Spencer is the founder of the alt-right, which, some people call this a mix of white supremacists and so forth. And we've seen the activities all across the country. Well, the threat here is this. Richard Spencer is selling an idea, and it's an idea that does not believe or that does not subscribe to inclusion. It does not obviously include blacks in his philosophy. And so I think whether he represents a threat or not, that depends on how you say it. I think, if Richard Spencer is selling, I think the obligation is for those who do not believe in what Richard Spencer is selling, people like us and others, need to be able to push for equality and push for diversity. Let's go to Rick. Rick, back to the question. Maybe Rick can help me understand this. The next Judge Damon Keith or the next Attorney Morris Dees for Detroit, because I could not find any. And not to say that this city is bereft of talent. This city has a lot of talent. This city has a lot of fine lawyers. This city has a lot of lawyers who dress well, who look great. This city has, just go to the annual lawyers events and all that. You will see what I'm talking about. But are there lawyers, are there judges that have the courage? Let's go to Rick. Rick, go ahead.
Well, I'm like you, and thanks for doing a piece on New Massacala. Mason Grenades was my favorite, and I certainly saw him as part of the Black cultural development and consciousness at that time. But on your question, I have a little different view.
Okay.
I don't think that we necessarily are going to see, those types of individuals because we put a lot of expectancy in the positions of people at that time. And I think now we've come to realize that we have to have a harmony of narrative. It just can't be one or two smart people. Right. And you can see the focus moving away from civil rights and more into economics. And I think so you're not going to really see a lot of the power moves coming from maybe lawyers and judges as much as you're going to see, I think, a consciousness grow, an economic powerball, if you would, and people will begin to deal with that because he or she that receives and harnesses the claims of the people pretty much are going to get that. And so people are not necessarily now going to their ministers or, to just prominent individuals like that and dropping their claims and problems there because they have a diverse array of options to choose from. And I think for a lot of us, though, if I'm looking at the trends properly from my perspective, then as we move to these economic pieces, I expect groups and consortiums and organizations of such to come together. And I've said it before, I think that we're going to have more, member-owned and operated advocacy, that we're going to start to move away from, the public administrator, the electoral politician, and start moving into groups where we can talk about buying from each other and trading with each other and what we can do for self-help. And I think that that's some of the change that we're witnessing, and that we could move a lot faster if we had people who were, I think, conscious of that and investing in change. But I think because we rely on so many people and have relied on so many people to give us our narrative instead of positioning ourselves to hear the claims and experiences of our brothers and sisters,
right.
It's taking a little bit more time to, get our focus together. But, I'm hopeful, and Nathan.com is hopeful.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the number to call and chime in. We're talking about leadership, Black civic leadership, right, in the context. And, of course, this came out of, I was talking about the legacy of Morris Dees and what he's been able to do in terms of a co-founder of the Southern Poverty Law Center and, dedicating his entire life, if you will, to fighting hate and bigotry and going after groups and organizations that basically thrive on hate and bigotry, that sell hate and bigotry, and was successfully able to successfully bankrupt a KKK group, and force them to sell their property and so forth. And I was drawing from that legacy, connecting it to Black political legacy as well, Black political leadership in terms of Detroit, right? The compounding problems that this city has. In the last 12 months or the last 24 months, have you seen or heard from let's say, anybody. Now, this is outside of the usual suspects. I know some of you already have names that you want to give me right now, names of activists. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about people that have the professional resource, right, to help, to come out and say, okay, we're putting our brain power, our firepower behind this issue, and we want to make sure that this issue is resolved. Let me give you a quick example. Like the Damon Grimes situation, right? Died in a state police encounter, right? Now, I'm sure Damon Grimes' family had to, I think they went to Jeffrey Feiger, right? Was it Feiger who took the Damon Grimes case? Feiger is a white male. Let me repeat, Jeffrey Feiger is a white male. So you tell me that there are not enough civil rights lawyers in this town, in Detroit? The Damon Grimes family have to go depend to Feiger? Now, I'm not playing the race card here. I'm talking about black civic leadership here, right? You tell me all the lawyers that we see at the Wolverine Bar Association, the chest pumping, if you will, right? Big deal. We graduated from Harvard, from Yale, from U of M, from University of Detroit, Mass, you name it. We're flaunting titles, we're flaunting, degrees, we're flaunting, Juris Doctorate and all of that. So the Damon Grimes family has to go in a police encounter that is right at the center of police brutality questions, made so pronounced by the Michael Brown, made so pronounced by the kind of justice we saw handed over in the Trayvon Martin case. All of that. So you're telling me that in Detroit, we don't have legal minds that are willing to step up into the shoes of a Morris Deans, into the shoes of a Damon Keith and others and so forth, and raise not only important questions, but be the ones. Now, let me say this though. Maybe the Grimes family wanted Jeffrey Feiger because he's an aggressive lawyer, but I'm just using that as an example here. And we've had many cases in the past, right? I remember when Ayanna Jones was killed in a police encounter on the East Side. Again, it was Jeffrey Feiger. In fact, I went to Ayanna Jones's funeral. I sat at the back and watched Jeffrey Feiger do his thing from the pulpit at the funeral. So, civil rights lawyers. When black boys, black kids, black girls get killed in this town, well, you have to look into the Coalition for Police Brutality. But there's only so much that they can do, right? Powerful black lawyers, highly educated black lawyers with the mind of a Charles Hamilton Houston, or lawyers with the mind of a Thurgood Marshall, lawyers with, where I'm going. I'm not going to name names, but you know what I'm talking about. Lawyers with the mind of a Thurgood Marshall, of a Damon Keith. You tell me we don't have those that will even step up and say, look, we're willing to take this case pro bono. In fact, we will dedicate resources because this speaks to black life and black existence. In fact, we will take this case for free because this case there's a bigger prize here with this case. It speaks to a national phenomenon, and we have to address this. Taking one case for free is not going to make you go broke because you've been getting paid all along. So that's not going to make you go broke. Think about it. I went to Ayanna Jones's funeral. A little girl died. And she lived in an environment on Lilyfield that is so much filth. I talked about it repeatedly. I've written columns about it.